For sinister internet rabbit holes revealed. Discover the terrifying secrets hidden in the dark web. Claire's fingers hovered over her phone as she scrolled through a forum filled with chilling tales that made her breath hitch in her throat. Dark web? She whispered to herself. The mere thought provoked images of shadowy figures and unspeakable horrors. The headline loomed like a thundercloud. For sinister internet rabbit holes revealed. What terror awaited her? Lurking deep beneath the surface of the digital world. The stories were too disturbing to ignore. One detailed a neighborhood where pets disappeared, replaced by whispers of something darker lying beyond the picket fences and manicured lawns. Another tale spoke of an abandoned school where laughter echoed, only that laughter belonged to those who never returned home. Unshed tears glazed Claire's eyes, each story tightening around her heart like a vice. She flicked to another post. A local officer, alluringly charismatic, woefully corrupted, silencing anyone who dared to speak out. A chill crept up her spine as she read on. Danger was nestled dangerously close, perched like a hawk ready to swoop down. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the night wore on, Claire's thoughts spiraled into terrifying paranoia. Every neighbor's smile transformed into a sinister smirk. She could feel their eyes on her, dissecting her every move, waiting for the moment their facade would slip. Craig, next door, always offering to help with Jack's lawn games. Was it really kindness? Or was it something more nefarious? She couldn't shake the thought. The atmosphere was thick with dread as Claire finished her shift at the diner. The comforting hum of the bustling restaurant faded, replaced by the unsettling quiet of her own home. She drove her old minivan through the eerily empty streets, every shadow playing tricks on her mind. What if something terrible was happening to Jack as she worked late? What if he was a target? The fear clawed at her throat. When she stepped inside, she was met with an unsettling silence. Kerfuffle from the television was the only sound, casting flickering lights on the walls. Jack? She called, panic bubbling in her belly. No answer. Her heart raced as storm clouds brewed in her mind. The stories played on repeat. Children vanished, families torn apart, nightmares creeping through innocuous neighborhoods. Each room she checked held its own creeping dread, shadows that seemed to deepen, corners that swallowed light whole. He should have been home. He was always home by now. Something cold surged through her veins when she reached Jack's room. The floor still and void of life. The absence of his laughter echoed louder than any ghost. Just as she turned back to call for help, she heard a soft creak, the kind that crawls up your spine, twisting it into an unyielding knot. She turned slowly and saw the front door open. A figure stood silhouetted against the bright porch light, the smile stretching across their face, twisting her insides like a knife. Was this the monster she'd been reading about? This was only the beginning, she thought, terror tightening its grip around her heart. With Jack still missing, she knew deep down that the world she trusted was dissolving, revealing a nightmare that awaited beyond her doorstep. Claire's breath caught in her throat as the figure stepped closer, the porch light casting long shadows that danced grotesquely across the floor. The smile was impossibly wide, stretching unnaturally as if it were a mask fitted onto flesh. Claire, the figure called, its voice eerily familiar. The sound sent a shiver through her bones. It wasn't the voice of a stranger. It was a mocking echo of someone she knew. Jack? She screamed, the name escaping her lips like a desperate prayer. But the figure only laughed, a low, chilling chuckle that made her want to curl in on herself. It illustrated her every fear. What if it wasn't Jack? What if it was something else entirely? You're late, the figure teased, stepping into the room, revealing a stranger's face but Jack's familiar gait. Panic surged within her. She took a step back, eyes darting for something, anything that could serve as a weapon or a means of escape. Where is he? She demanded, each word laced with raw desperation. The figure grew closer, unperturbed by her trembling resolve. "Don't worry about little Jack. He is safe for now," it said, the last word dripping with malice. Claire's mind raced as she thought back to the stories she'd read, stories of parents ripped apart from their children, families torn asunder by dark forces. Had she gambled too long at the edges of that dark web? Did her curiosity lead her to this moment? "Just tell me where he is," she cried, her voice breaking. Another laugh echoed through the room, deep and rumbling, as if it belonged to something far older and infinitely more sinister. "He.s. learning he'll be fine. I'm just here to extend an invitation." "Invite?" she echoed, heart pounding as she caught a glimpse of the reflection in the dark window, a silhouette standing behind her. "Join us, Claire. There's so much fun here, all you have to do is look deeper." The figure's face warped into something hideous, eyes narrowing, transforming into dark pits that offered her no reassurance. "You're already on the right path." With trembling hands, Claire fumbled for her phone, but it slipped from her grasp, crashing to the floor and shattering into pieces. Unthinkable panic clawed at her chest, fueling her need to flee. In one swift motion, she dashed through the living room, grabbing the door handle just as the figure lunged forward. It was a split-second decision, no time to lose. The latch clicked open, and she flung the door wide, stumbling out into the cool night. But the street was empty. No cars, no lights, just the suffocating darkness that seemed to reach out and grasp her. She turned back, but the figure loomed just inside the doorway, its smile gone, replaced by a menacing scowl. "Go ahead, Claire. Run. But you know you'll come back. They all do in the end." It sang, the voice curling like smoke around her. Her legs pummeled against the pavement, shoes pounding in frantic rhythm as she raced down the street. Thoughts whirled, every shadow whispering the truth she feared to confront, that Jack may not be safe at all. Each breath felt like shards of ice, gnawing at her resolve. Desperation clawed at her throat as she passed familiar houses, the warmth of home trampled by an encroaching dread. What had she stumbled into? The world around her became a blur, but soon, the night air shifted. It grew colder. A fog rolled in thickly, obscuring the familiar and turning the street into an alien landscape. There, a flicker caught her eye, a light beneath a street lamp that flickered ominously. She hesitated, the stories echoing in her head. Was it hope or a trap? Then, without warning, her phone buzzed in her pocket, sending her heart racing. Who could be calling? Or was it just another sign pointing her to the abyss? Ignoring the warning bells, she pulled it out. A text illuminated the screen, a single phrase, "Look deeper, before it's too late." As Claire stood there, trembling, caught between flight and despair, she felt a presence behind her. The same chill that had gripped her heart earlier flooded back. Was it the figure? Or was it Jack, calling for her? The night offered no answers, only shadows. And as she braced against the rising tide of panic, Claire realized that the true horror of the dark web was not just what lay beneath, it was far too close to home. What would she discover if she looked deeper? Or would it consume her entirely? The fog thickened around Claire, wrapping around her like a suffocating shroud. She spun around, every sense on high alert. The tension hung in the air, heavy and oppressive. Darkness dripped from the sky, pooling at her feet, and she felt the urge to scream rising inside her. "Jack," she called, her voice barely a whisper, as if speaking louder might shatter the fragile veil of night that had closed in around her. The silence was maddening. Her heart raced painfully in her chest, beating like a drum in the stillness. Then, a flicker ahead caught her eye. The light beneath the street lamp pulsed again, like a heartbeat. There was something alluring about it. She hesitated, torn between curiosity and dread, the text on her phone echoing in her mind. "Look deeper before it's too late." Could there be a clue? Or was it another trap? Claire forced herself to move, each step a battle against the weight of fear dragging her backward. As she approached the light, she noticed shadows shifting at the edges, a distortion that sent a bolt of panic through her veins. The street lamp threw erratic beams, revealing glimpses of movement just beyond its reach. Claire, the voice was faint but distinct. Her breath hitched, the familiarity making her shiver. Jack? She dared to call, hope flickering like the light before her. Help me. It was weak and strained, filled with anguish. Claire's legs propelled her forward, but the fog felt like quicksand. I'm coming, she shouted, reaching desperately for the light. It felt like a lifeline, a connection to her son, a way back to safety. She had to fight through the shadows, to look deeper into whatever lay ahead. With every step toward the lamp, the darkness thickened, moving as though it were alive, coiling and twisting around her. Shapes began to emerge between the swirling fog, familiar but grotesque figures that sent chills coursing down her spine. They wore masks twisted into grotesque smiles, and their eyes, devoid of light, watched her with unmistakable hunger. Join us, Claire, they whispered in eerie unison, their voices echoing, syncopating with her pounding heart. Get away, Claire shouted, swinging her arms as if to fend off their creeping presence. But they closed in, a wall of laughter and malice. Don't you want to play? One of them asked, tilting its head, as if mimicking Jack's innocent curiosity. No, she couldn't think. She only could act. Fueled by rage and terror for her son, Claire lunged toward the streetlight, battling the oppressive darkness. Something flickered at the corner of her mind. Was this what they meant by exploring? By looking deeper? Just as she reached the lamp's glow, the figures recoiled as if repelled by an unseen force. They hissed, their bodies writhing into the shadows. The light felt like a fragile barrier between her and the horrors threatening to swallow her whole. Jack, she cried again, feeling a surge of desperation. There had to be a way to reach him. That voice, was it a beacon or a snare? She couldn't back down now. Gathering all her strength, she stepped into the light. But instead of safety, a vision exploded in her mind. Jack's face, twisted in a mixture of fear and sorrow, surrounded by a chaotic landscape of horrors too vast to comprehend. No, she screamed, clutching her head as the cacophony heightened around her. You're just in time for the invitation, the figures hissed, emerging from the darkness. Their smiles returned, wide and eerie. You could go home, but you'd miss the show. A new wave of dread gripped her as the shadows started to edge closer again. Hungry, ready to drag her in. Which is it going to be, Claire? They taunted, their voices a dark chorus that echoed off the walls of her sanity. Look deeper or continue to run. With terror clawing at her throat, Claire realized she had to face the shadows if she ever wanted to find Jack. The truth was lurking within, and now they were all watching her. Could she withstand what lay ahead? Or would she become just another face in the throng? The shadows shifted, and Claire felt a tremor in the ground. She braced for impact, for whatever was to come. What unspeakable truths loomed beyond the veil of light? And could she summon the courage to face them? The shadows surged, an undulating mass hungry for her despair. Claire's heart hammered against her ribs as she fought against the creeping terror that threatened to engulf her whole. A sinister whisper brushed against her ear, calling her name with a tone that felt both familiar and wrong. Come play, Claire, they beckoned, drifting closer. There was no mistaking the venom in their exaggerated grins, nor the echoes of laughter that danced maddeningly in the fog. She forced herself to retreat to the safety of the light, but felt it weakening, flickering like a candle caught in a storm. I want to let you take me, she shouted at the figures, willing her voice to carry resolve, despite the tremor lurking beneath her words. The distance between them and her seemed to blur and shorten. That laughter, it clawed at her mind, burrowing deeper with each mocking sound. It twisted nostalgia with dread, reminding her of Jack's laughter when he played hide and seek. She felt as though she were losing her grip on reality, sucked into a void that threatened to swallow everything in its path. Suddenly, Jack's voice rang clearer. Help me, Mom! The desperation in his tone shattered her haze. His image flickered, bastardized by the fog, but she could feel the intent behind it. Hold on, I'm coming, Claire shouted, pushing through the tightening grip of the vast shadows. She thrust her hand forward, reaching for any remnant of her boy. The shadows recoiled slightly, split, granting her a momentary glimpse of what lay beyond. A field of twisted limbs and broken toys, a parody of childhood nestled within grotesque shapes. Despair licked at her heels, but she pressed on, fighting against the envelopment of shadow. They slithered out, mocking her, the rancid air filled with whispers of lost souls. "You can't leave now, don't you want to play with us forever?" A chill ran down her spine. It felt as if the fog itself had come alive, a sentient being bred from anguish and longing, eager to consume her spirit. She couldn't let it. She wouldn't. She sprinted, searching for Jack, fueled by instinct and a relentless drive to save him. The streetlights along the way flickered, dislodging memories of laughter but now tainted with dread. She forced her mind to stay focused. She had to navigate this treacherous maze and find him. Suddenly, the darkness groaned, shifting like thick oil spilling over asphalt. Claire stumbled as the earth beneath her felt like it was splitting in two, a gaping chasm of uncertainty. "Mom!" The voice was haunting, a cry resonating through the fog, but layered with something dark, something ominous. It disrupted her thoughts, reminding her of phantom dreams where everything was just out of reach. The tall figures stretched out their shadowed hands toward her, their glee palpable as she faltered. "Don't you want to see what happens to little boys who don't listen?" They crooned, their voices dripping with malice. "No," she screamed, shaking her head violently. "I won't let you tempt me." But as she darted forward, a shadow lunged, its hand reaching for her ankle, pulling her off balance. She hit the ground with a thud, the fog enveloping her, cool like a vice around her throat. The figures loomed, laughing, their hollow eyes glinting with sadistic pleasure. Suddenly, a warm glow bloomed ahead, pulsating like a heartbeat. Felt like a beacon promising safety. Claire shot up, the weight of the encroaching horror threatening to drag her back down. Desperation drove her faster. As she neared the light, she could hear it again, Jack's voice, faint but clear. "Help me," but just as she reached the threshold, it withdrew, pulling back like a mirage vanishing into the fog. "Join us, Claire. Don't leave us, not yet," the figures hissed, their twisted forms merging into a blinding mass. Fear clawed at her, pulling her deeper into the void. The shadows pressed against her, seeping through the cracks of her resolve. What would she risk to save Jack? Was she prepared to face the festering reality behind the light? With a familiar incantation echoing in her mind, Claire thrust forward one more time, ready to plunge into whatever darkness awaited. And as she did, she found herself staring into a pair of familiar eyes that mirrored Jack's but nested in a face shrouded in darkness. "Mom, where have you been?" The ground trembled, and Claire understood nothing was as it seemed. What new horror awaited her in this tangled web of shadow, reality, and the desperate cries of a child? Claire's breath caught in her throat. The eyes before her held the innocence of her son, yet they flickered with a predator's hunger. She took a stumbling step back, the awful realization that something had twisted Jack's essence into this haunting specter overshadowing her frantic hope. "Mom, where have you been?" The voice was sweet, almost childlike, but the undercurrent of something sinister crackled in the air. It was wrong, deeply wrong. "Jack?" she whispered, grasping for any sign of the son she loved, the fingers of despair clawing at her heart. "I'm here, I'm coming for you." But before she could reach out, the shadows shifted, coalescing into more than just figures. A warped smile spread across the creature's face, a grotesque reflection of everything that was pure. "You left me," it purred, the laughter echoing from a multitude of mouths hidden deep within the writhing darkness. The fog surged, tightening its grip around her, stifling her resolve. Claire fought to maintain her footing as it pooled around her ankles, pulling her down like quicksand. "No, I didn't," she cried, desperation thick in her voice. "I would never abandon you." "Not yet," it hissed, and with that, Jack's figure twisted, elongating, morphing into something grotesque, a parody of the child she once knew. Nausea rolled through her, and she squeezed her eyes shut, willing this nightmare away. She pictured Jack's room, his laughter warming the cold crevices of her mind. If she could focus, if she could just. The fog thickened, and when she opened her eyes, the landscape had changed. Where the twisted playthings once lay, now stood a massive playground, warped and creaking, splintered with jutting out like broken teeth. The merry-go-round spun on its own, each turn emitting echoes of a laughter that twisted into a harsh cackle. She felt the awareness of the eyes watching her, lurking just beyond the veil of shadows that surrounded the playground. Playtime, Claire, they taunted, their tones layered in grotesque harmony. Would you like to join us? The gravity of their words held a terrible truth. Play meant much more in this cursed realm than it ever did in the sunny afternoons of her past. Just then, a figure illuminated faintly in the distance, a silhouette she recognized despite the warped angles. Mom! Jack's voice sliced through the cacophony, genuine and earnest. Her heart ignited with a flicker of hope, but it quickly dulled as the shadows hissed in protest. Let him go, she bellowed, fury bubbling up through the dread. You won. Take him. With every ounce of strength, she broke into a sprint, tears blurring her vision. She chased the boy, desperate, the idea of danger creeping behind her with claw-like fingers. But as she drew closer, the ground trembled, and Jack's face twisted again, lips curling into a smile that threatened to shatter her resolve. Mom, don't you want to play? She skidded to a halt, the joy of seeing him warping into a dreadful uncertainty. Play? This isn't. Look closer. The shadows around her whispered, sinking with the rhythmic pounding of her heart. The ground cracked, revealing glimpses of what lay beneath a swirling abyss that promised horrors beyond comprehension. In that moment, Claire realized the truth. The playground wasn't for joy. It was a trap designed to ensnare her deepest fears. Her love transformed into a weapon. Jack, she cried, voice piercing the oppressive gloom. I'm coming. I won't let you go. But as she lunged towards the figure, the darkness surged, swallowing the distance between them. The playground shrieked, spinning faster and faster, blurring the line of reality. Join us, Claire, the shadows whispered, encasing her in their wretched love. Let us play forever. And then, in a fleeting fragment of clarity, she understood every choice she made sunk her deeper into their game. A cruel revelation hit her. Would saving Jack mean losing herself? As the storm of shadows gathered arms around her, the ground below quaked violently. What are you willing to sacrifice? They taunted, their voices mingling into an overwhelming chant. Their ceaseless laughter echoed as Claire took a breath, preparing for whatever came next, caught between the child she loved and the darkness that hungered for them both. And far off, beyond the swirling chaos, came the faintest rustle of hope, a whisper that promised answers or devouring despair. What would she uncover if she dared to plunge deeper into the twisted web of shadows? Claire's heart pounded like a war drum, thumping against her ribs with every breath. She could feel the playground shifting, breathing, blending despair with a warped kind of joy. The laughter grew louder, twisting into a sickening frenzy that reverberated around her. She could almost taste the sweetness of Jack's voice buried beneath the shadows. A note of purity turned rancid. Jack, she shouted, frantically searching for the last flicker of his silhouette. But the laughter drowned her out. This isn't real. The figures swirled mischievously, their shapes dissolving and reforming, matching the erratic beats of her heart. But it is you've always known, the shadows whispered, each syllable licking at her sanity. The merry-go-round spun wildly, each revolution unveiling glimpses of children stuck in the fog, faces contorted in cries of joy and pain, a kaleidoscope of horror masked by mirth. One child, with eyes reminiscent of Jack, reached out, fingers brushing against the linger of light that surrounded Claire. Mommy, will you play? Stay away, she screamed, desperately pulling herself back. She blinked away the tears, trying to bring focus and clarity. But reality teetered. A disquieting shiver danced along her spine, and in the corner of her eye, something moved in the shadows. Watching, waiting, the darkness formed shapes, beasts of her worst memories, shadows that clawed at the edges of her perception. Join us, a voice beckoned, low and inviting, a sinister song echoing in her ears. Claire's throat tightened, panic bubbling up from her stomach. She pressed her palms against her temples, willing herself to think clearly. She needed to find Jack. This was a game meant to torment her, and she refused to play. Each step she took felt like wading through thick, wet fog. The ground surged beneath her feet, each tremor threatening to swallow her whole. "What's the price of your love?" the shadows sang, mocking her every thought. "What will you give up to save your dear sweet boy?" Heart racing, Claire turned. She glimpsed Jack's face once again, but it was overlaid with shadows, transforming it into a gnarled mask of torment. "No, Jack, I love you," she shouted. The world warped violently. The cheerful cries turned into haunting wails, and the world around her twisted into dark corridors, morphing with every turn. She felt the shadows gripping her arms now, trying to pull her into unending despair. She cried out, muscles straining against their icy grasp. "I want to let you in. I want to give in." The playground erupted into chaos. The ground shattered beneath her, revealing a chasm of swirling darkness reminiscent of a stormy sea. Whispers rose like a tidal wave, each voice a dagger slipping through her defenses. "Choose, Claire," they taunted, their cacophony rising to a fever pitch. "Are you willing to lose everything to save him?" A part of her knew they thrived on fear, manipulating the love of a mother as if it were some perverse puppet show. Yet the thought of Jack, trapped and twisted in this nightmare, sent her heart racing. Could she really save him? Or would her love become her chains? She felt a sudden shift. The darkness wavered, and with it, a rustling echoed from beyond the dark. Something or someone approached. A figure emerged, shrouded in shadow but exuding a presence that made the darkness recoil, revealing a confrontation edged with the promise of both salvation and despair. Claire's heart leaped. Could it be another lost soul? Or perhaps even an ally against this unfathomable terror? "Help me," she cried, her voice breaking through the chaos. The figure turned, revealing an unexpected face, one that sent jolts of recognition through Claire's mind. "You shouldn't have come here," it warned, but the shadows twisted hungrily, eager to consume the very essence of that voice. What desperate truths lay hidden in this world of shadows? And at what cost would she learn them? The climax of her fear and hope coalesced, drawing her deeper into the abyss. A thread of fate laced with darkness leading her towards a moment that could shatter everything she once believed. Claire's breath hitched as she stepped closer, her heart tightening in her chest. The face before her, an echo from her past, was both a comfort and a curse. "Robert," she stammered, disbelief mingling with desperation. It felt like a cruel joke, conjured by the shadows that danced eagerly around them. "Yes, Claire," he moved forward, a shadow weaving through shadows, each step weighed down with unspoken torment. "You shouldn't have come. This place feeds on your love and fear." His gaze flickered to her, a mix of pity and warning. "What do you mean?" Her voice trembled, no longer booming. "I have to find Jack." Hope sprang, even as her mind spun with doubt. "You have to help me. You can't leave him here." "Jack is the key," he said, voice low and urgent. "But every moment you linger, the darkness grows stronger. It will consume you both." The playground quaked ominously, its laughter shifting into a cacophony that threatened to drown them. Shadows slithered closer, their whispers curling around Claire's mind like barbed wire. "Join us, be one of us, they want to take from you," Robert warned, eyes narrowing at the swirling chaos. "They thrive on your despair." Claire's mind raced. "What do I do? Can't lose him." The thought clawed at her insides, a relentless ache that matched the chaos swirling around her. Robert extended a hand, fury and sadness mingling in his expression. "You must confront the truth, Claire. You have to accept your past. Only then will the shadows relent." "Accept what?" Anger flared in her, battling against fear. The laughter felt like 1,000 nails scraping against her sanity. "What do you know? You're just a ghost." "Am I?" His tone was low, as shadows twisted behind him. "Or are you the one trapped in memory?" You closed the door on what happened. You can't do that anymore. You have to face it. The merry-go-round screeched and bucked. The sensation of something awful lurking beneath the surface sent chills racing down her arms. Claire felt a pulse in the ground beneath her, a heartbeat of the darkness. Despair echoed within. I can't do this, she cried out, a raw scream torn from her throat. Face your fear. Robert's voice surged against the whirlwind. Only then can you save him. In a heartbeat, the shadows hungered viciously, diving into her mind, dragging out memories she buried deep. Fractured images of her past rushed forth. An argument, a broken glass, the wrong choice. Her breath quickened, terror clawing at her throat. They were building a throne of her regrets, one that would trap her forever, suffocating the very spark of love she fought to protect. Tell me what I need to know, she shouted, fighting against an unseen force that was pulling at her will. Robert's face contorted with anguish. You must choose, Claire. Will you sacrifice more of yourself to save him? Or will you let the shadows win? Tears streamed down her face as memories curled and warped like smoke in the air. Jack, he deserves more than this, she gasped, the weight of each loss crashing onto her shoulders. Then find him, Robert urged as the laughter swelled, drowning out her thoughts. Make the choice before it's too late. Darkness pressed down, thick and suffocating, squeezing her heart as she gasped for breath, teetering on the edge of the chasm she had tried so hard to ignore. What would she give to save him? Would she have to embrace the truth of her choices, the fractured past that had led her here? The playground pulsed with a living rhythm, a nightmarish heartbeat echoing in her ears. Claire's world spun as she struggled against the encroaching shadows. Time was slipping. Jack was somewhere in this twisted funhouse of pain and horror. The darkness closed in around her, a clamor of whispers urging her to relent. As panic seized her throat, she took a step forward, ready to confront what lay ahead, but could she bear the depths of her own despair? With every fiber of her being, she cried out, Jack! The world spun dangerously as she plunged deeper into chaos, ready to face the shadows, to uncover the horrific truth. Would salvation come, or would her desperate choice unravel everything she hoped to hold on to? The shadows swirled around Claire like a living mist, dense and alive. She felt the weight of their grasp on her heart, pulling her towards unfathomable depths. She called out again, Jack, but the sound of his name dissipated into the cacophony of laughter and sorrow. It was as if the very air jeered at her desperation. Robert stepped back, his expression shifting to an agonized mask. Each moment you delay, the darkness grows stronger. It's trying to consume you, Claire. He reached for her, but the shadows flicked at his fingers, snapping like hungry jaws. Get back, Claire shouted, her fear morphing into a desperate rage. Don't you dare leave me. Listen to me. Robert's voice rose, drowning out the chaos. The truth about Jack, about your past, it's bound to this place. Only by confronting the pain can you hope to save him. The swinging tides of shadows twisted within her. Clara's skin crawled as memories flooded her mind, swirling with darkness. Her childhood laughter muffled beneath heavy silence, the echo of a shattering promise, the cold, hard truth of abandonment. Each recollection a knife, each regret a burden heavier than the last. She felt an electric shock of fear rush through her. What do you mean? What happened to him? Trust in the light of your memories, Robert pleaded. Remember your bond. Love is the antidote to despair. The merry-go-round creaked violently, its colors blending darkly under the weight of the looming shadows. Claire staggered, gripped by an icy chill. The love I had, she whispered, doubt gnawing at her resolve. How could love shield her? It brought me nothing but pain. No, that's the lie the shadows want you to believe. Robert grasped her wrist tightly, urgency sparking in his eyes. You need to reconnect with Jack. Find what binds you. The playground vibrations intensified, as if it were alive, thrumming against her chest. She recognized the pulse of their bond, a tether still present, faint yet undeniable. Jack, she gasped, the name tasting bitter and sweet on her tongue. The laughter shrieked in a crescendo, spiraling into mania, and the darkness coiled tighter. As she teetered on the edge of the void, a frenzied idea sparked within her, a realization that clawed its way to the surface. She had locked away pieces of her heart, fragments that danced with Jack's essence, but fear kept them buried. "I can do this," Claire asserted, each word gaining strength. "I will face my past." The shadows hissed, moving to counter her resolve. But as she called forth her memories, a golden glow pierced through the haze. Images of Jack smiling, vibrant, full of life fueled her newfound courage. The laughter from the playground transformed. It became a melody of hope, solely for her. "Hold on, Jack," she shouted, her heart igniting with purpose. "I'm coming for you." Just as the shadows lunged, seeking to devour her, the glow intensified, pushing back against the darkness. Claire felt warmth flooding her, a surge of love that enveloped her like an armor. "Remember, Claire." Robert's voice reached her from afar as the ray enveloped him too. "The darkness feeds on isolation. You are stronger when you connect." But as she pressed forward, an anguished scream pierced her heart, shaking her resolve. Was it Jack? Was he calling for her, lost in the torment? The glow flickered, momentarily dimming in the grip of uncertainty as she surged forward. Then, all at once, the ground beneath her pulled violently. A chasm opened up, teeth gleaming and eager, threatening to swallow her whole. Her voice was a thunderous roar. "I won't let you take me." But the shadows laughed, a sickening sound that echoed darkly as she plummeted into the abyss. The ground fell away, a cold emptiness swallowing her screams, and the last thing she felt was the fading warmth of the glow. And then silence. In that deafening quiet, Claire grasped at the fragments of herself scattered in the void. She had to find that light again, had to save Jack before it was too late. Had she truly emerged from the darkness, or had she merely slipped deeper into its waiting embrace? The answer lurked, just out of reach. What awaited her in the depths? Would she find Jack, or had the shadows claimed another soul? The silence was a thick fog, smothering her senses. Claire drifted through the void, disoriented and alone. The shadows around her whispered secrets, caressing her mind with chilling promises. She had fallen, but where? The darkness felt alive, pulsating with malice, waiting to sink its teeth into her despair. "Jack!" she shouted again, the name trembling on her lips. Panic twisted in her chest. She pushed herself up, searching for anything familiar, but it felt like grasping at smoke. Each breath she took felt heavier, laden with memories of shame and abandonment. Then, amidst the suffocating silence, she heard it, a distant echo, a child's laughter. Claire's heart raced. Was it real, or a cruel trick of the shadows? "Jack!" The name pierced the air like a shot. The laughter faded, replaced by a discordant melody that twisted her stomach. The rhythm was unsettling, like the heartbeat of something monstrous lurking just beyond her sight. The memories flooded back harder now, tearing at the seams of her resolve. Each recollection was a ghost whispering tales of betrayal. "You left me," a voice taunted from the darkness. It was her own voice, heavy with accusation. Claire squeezed her eyes shut, trying to block it out. She was here to find Jack, to save him, not to wrestle with her own demons. "Stop! Just stop!" she cried, desperation rising like a tide. But the shadows surged around her, heaving with laughter, taunting her for her weakness. Suddenly, a flicker of light ignited in the abyss, a pinprick of promise against the encroaching darkness. Her heart seized with hope. Was it Jack, or her chance to escape the void? Claire lunged toward the light, fueled by the primal urge to escape. The shadows recoiled, hissing as she reached the light. A warm glow enveloped her, wrapping around her like a cherished embrace. Claire felt the warmth seep into her bones, the fear beginning to melt away. "Claire!" A voice echoed, desperate and familiar. It sent a shock through her, piercing the tendrils of doubt that had knotted her heart. "Jack!" Her voice shook with urgency, drawing her closer to the light. Help! It came again, weaker this time, strained. a thread of panic entwined with the warmth as the voice faded. "No!" she shouted, terror clawing at her throat. The light flickered dangerously as the shadows reached for her, desperate to reclaim their hold. "I won't lose you again." Claire emerged into a blinding flash, a kaleidoscope of colors swirling about her as she fell back now inside a different realm, a twisted version of the playground she once loved. The merry-go-round stood still, its vibrant colors eerily muted, as if time had wrapped it in a shroud of grief. The laughter was gone, replaced by a hollow echo that vibrated inside her chest. "Jack!" she called again, but this time her voice felt small, swallowed by the oppressive silence that clawed at her mind. A low growl rumbled around her, a chilling reminder of the shadows that followed. Panic seized her heart. This was not over. "Claire!" A whisper coiled through the air, slithering around her like a noose. It was seductive, familiar, yet it dripped with malice. "Look for him if you dare." The shadows danced, writhing in anticipation, and she felt their hunger like a physical force. They were playing with her now, coaxing her deeper, urging her toward the secret that awaited. But what lay ahead was a mystery, fraught with danger. Did Jack remain trapped in this nightmare, or had he become something else entirely? Claire took a deep breath, steeling herself. In the depths of despair, she had to forge ahead. "I will find you," she whispered to the void, determination anchoring her resolve. And then, just as she turned, a figure loomed in the shadows, familiar yet unrecognizable. Jack? But the face that emerged was twisted, a haunting reflection of what she feared most. Was this truly her love, or had the darkness finally claimed what was once pure? The closer she stepped, the more uncertainty coiled in her gut. What would she find in his eyes? And then she realized perhaps saving him would mean facing the darkest parts of herself. The shadows peeled back, revealing twisted forms that echoed familiar laughter, and Claire's heart sank. She stepped forward, determined, but uncertainty choked her throat. "Jack?" she called again, her voice trembling, her eyes scanning the grotesque amalgamation of familiar childhood memories turned malevolent. "Mommy," the voice was close yet felt a world away. "Where have you been?" Claire's breath snagged, panic blooming within her. Was that really him? She felt a gravitational pull toward the figure, but the ambiguity clung to the air, nauseating and thick. It edged closer, and for a horrifying moment, she feared it would dissolve into the shadows. "Stay back," she shouted, summoning every ounce of strength, her fingers flexing as she prepared for a fight. "If you're real, show me who you are." The figure hesitated, then stepped into the dim light. The familiar features began to settle, but the joyful spark was muffled beneath layers of shadow. Jack's eyes gleamed, but they swirled with an unsettling depth that sent a chill racing down Claire's spine. "Mommy, I don't want to play anymore," he whispered, sorrow heavy in his voice. A shudder rattled through her. The truth hammered in. Something terrible had infiltrated their bond. "You're not him, you're part of this darkness," she cried, sobbing as the realization clawed at her heart. She breathed through her tears, refusing to surrender to despair that threatened to drown her. "Then look deeper," the shadow Jack urged, an unsettling smile spreading across his lips. "You can join us. We can be happy together." "No." Claire's voice turned steel, hardening with resolve. "I'll find the real you, and I'll bring you back." Suddenly, the darkness howled, swirling violently as it pressed in from all directions. Claire took a determined step forward, feeling the weight of all her regrets surface in her mind. "You don't belong here," she shouted at the malicious laughter echoing from all directions. "Do you love me enough to face your truth?" The voice lingered in the air, a thick fog that threatened to suffocate her resolve. Claire's heart thudded with dread. "I do. But this isn't love." The playground landscape around her warped, its edges pulsating with shadows, mocking her attempts to weave the light back into her truth. Images flooded her mind, a loving memory of Jack at the park, chasing shadows, laughter mixing with sunlight. The warmth of that day anchored her. "We are stronger than this darkness," she declared, the fragmented memories coalescing into a single shining truth. With renewed vigor, She plunged into the heart of the shadows, the terror at her back morphing into strength. She charged toward the twisted version of Jack, enveloping him in the light that was once their bond, the connection they shared that thrived on love and hope. Together, we are unstoppable, Claire shouted as she pulled him in, her heart driving her to summon every ounce of love. You're not a shadow, we're more than this. Cast it away. As if caught in a tempest, the light surged between them, a brilliant flash illuminating the darkness. Jack's twisted visage faltered, resistance giving way to recognition. Mom, I need you. Yes, Claire roared, desperation fueling her strength as warmth encased them both. Come back to me. The shadows writhed and screamed, but the glow expanded, wrapping around them, illuminating the twisted playground and exposing its horrors. The dark forms shrieked as they recoiled, bright with fury and fear. And for the first time, Claire felt powerful. The grip of despair loosened, revealing paths of light that stretched into the distances between twisted structures. With a final surge, they broke free, a whirlwind of golden warmth rushing through. The playground shattered into trembling pieces, the cacophony of laughter fading into the distant void. And then came the quiet. Claire and Jack stood at the edge of a new realm, bathed in brilliant sunlight. She breathed deeply, heart filling with the possibility of peace. Jack looked up at her, his familiar smile breaking through. Mom, you did it. She scooped him into her arms, pressing kisses into his hair. I'll always come for you, she whispered through tears of relief and joy. Nothing will tear us apart again. As they stood together, a soft warmth embraced them, wrapping around their hearts. The fear and pain experienced in the shadows began to dissolve, replaced by a resolute love that offered firm foundation beneath their feet. Claire squeezed Jack tight, and for the first time, she felt a true sense of hope sink into her bones. They had faced the abyss and emerged together stronger, lighter, free of the chains forged in darkness. Together they could face any storm, no matter how shrouded in shadows it might be. Let us go home, Claire whispered, beaming at her son, her heart brimming with gratitude and love that could light even the darkest corners. And as they walked into the warmth of the sunlit horizon, Claire knew they carried a piece of that dark web with them. Yes, it would be part of their story, but it would never define them again. The past was woven into their journey, but it was their love that paved the way forward. Now it was time to fill their lives with hope and laughter, leaving the shadows behind. You all, don't let this moment slip. You need to subscribe now. If you want to dive deeper into stories like this, the time is now. Smash that like button to show your support, and please, flood the comments with your thoughts and theories about their incredible journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with 5 friends who need to hear this uplifting conclusion. Let's keep the power of connection alive.